Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. So, looks to be 1 in, 1 out within the next 24 hours or so, maybe slightly longer in terms of the incoming, but maybe not. And then hopefully another one, maybe not too long after that incoming. But that's what we're going to talk about. So, it's technically my day off today, which I know normally means something happens, but instead I have been out in the sunshine and also watching Thor Love and Thunder, which was superb. Very funny film. Finished Stranger Things as well last night. So quite the 24 hours or so of entertainment. A bit of a double whammy, as it were. So let's start straight from the off. Let's not mess around. Clement Lenglet, obviously likely to be done for Spurs. Certainly by the time they fly off to Korea on Saturday evening. So that's good stuff. Those craving their transfers will be sated. Their appetite will be sated. Expect the medical within the next 24 hours. And yeah, all done and dusted, hopefully, by the time they fly out late on Saturday. Obviously, they need to get the visa and everything sorted for them to head off over to Korea. So the Lenglet move itself, it's an interesting one. It is, because certainly for me, the most interesting part of it is after some early discussions about a potential option to buy, it looks like there's not going to be one. Which, you can draw all your own conclusions from that. The only thing I would say, and it's something that I've said previously, is that Tottenham's top two names on their defender wish list for the left-sided centre-back position were Josko Gvardiol and Alessandro Bastoni. I've said that multiple times, so I won't go into the ins and outs of that. But what I would say is being just a mere season-long loan with no option to buy at the end kind of lends itself even more to the logic that probably Spurs will then look to sign one of those two players next summer. You'd think. Logic would suggest it kind of plays into that quite neatly, I guess is the way to put it. So, Clement Lenglet, if you're not aware, 27-year-old France international. Spurs tried to sign him last summer, I understand, on loan, but he turned Tottenham down. Then obviously had a season at Barcelona, which wasn't the greatest in the world. Not what he would have wanted. Made 26 appearances, but his starts in the Liga were quite rare. Mainly, fun enough, he kind of started the bulk of the Champions League games. Obviously, a difficult season for Barcelona. He had a tough time as well, but certainly a player that, like I say, Spurs tried to sign last summer anyway. A lot of experience, can also play in the centre of a back three or on the left, so he's very versatile. Spurs will pay not all of his wages, they'll pay a big portion of his wages, but not all of it, and also a loan fee. But, like I say, that having no option to buy is such a kind of an important thing, because let's say he had a terrific season and absolutely smashed it in the Premier League, then obviously his value compared to whatever it is right now shoots up. I should apologise, I've got a manky looking plaster on my thumb. It's not like I'm starting some Keith Lemon style, as he wears like a wrist, like he's got a broken wrist kind of thing. It's not that. It's just I cut my thumb and I don't want to get it infected before I go to Korea, because I don't want to have a really sore thumb in Korea. It's nothing more exciting than that. Sorry, massive distraction away from Lenglet there. So, yeah, his price would shoot right up, which then makes it more difficult for Spurs to buy him without competition as well. It's unusual for Tottenham. It's not something that I'm trying to think. There will definitely have been loans in the past where they will have had no option, but pretty much everyone recent I can think of. I guess Bale. Because Gareth Bale is probably the one where I don't... there might have been... I think with Bale it's an interesting one. I think it was one of those where there was a verbal agreement that Spurs could take another loan, or certainly would be the front of the queue for another loan if there was one. But obviously all parties, it didn't happen. But yeah, so even that, I'd say that there's been something informal in place there. Obviously we know Galini's just gone back. He had an option to buy as well. We know Kulusevski, Romero. Hopefully we'll have the Romero announcement soon. It's one of those where I wondered whether just naturally it would kind of become the permanent move. But I understand Spurs are hoping to do some kind of announcement or something. So keep an eye on that. It may be they completely change their mind and it naturally just goes in anyway. But interestingly, he was one of the players that came back quite early for pre-season training as well. Very eager to get involved, which was great. There was quite a few faces turned up a little bit earlier than we expected. And the club expected as well. I wouldn't say the club expected. They would have notified the club. It's not like they just suddenly rocked up at the doors. Hey, we're back. I'm sure it wouldn't have been like that. But so Lenglet, back to him. He will certainly do a job in terms of being another body in that position. I said this before, but I'll say it again in case you weren't aware. Those I've spoken to about him say he's got excellent techniques, passing's very good, very educated, cultured left foot, whatever you want to say. The old cliches go. May lack a little bit of pace, but he does have good anticipation, experience, and like I say, versatile as well. So he's a good signing in terms of a very cheap loan with not even paying his full wages in what we are now looking at. Don't forget, I will say it multiple times, Conte building a squad, not a starting 11, with everyone competing for those places. In that sense, it's a good squad signing, definitely. And it would be a fifth player through the door. It's likely to be a fifth player through the door before they head off on a pre-season tour, which is... It was unheard of when we were at 1 or 2. I think 2019 had Tongi through the door. That was, but to have five is just incredible. Lenglet, I think it's a good addition for what it is. Like I say, I still believe there'll be a second centre-back come in because of Joe Rodon's expected departure, hopefully on loan. There'll be another one. It'd just be interesting to see kind of where they fit into that back three. Because the one good thing definitely about a loan is that it allows you to push money towards other areas. Obviously, Richarlison cost a lot, but you're not even talking about really denting that 150 million. And like I said in the past, a lot of these deals are done with instalments up front as well, kind of a first instalment, so you're not talking about the full whack going out anyway. So, there's more to come. There is more to come. I think, within Spurs, they are still hopeful that Djed Spence will be coming through those doors. There's no real expectation that it'll be in time for Korea, or certainly before they travel to Korea. I don't know whether they'd fly him out there or not if it was done within the next... It would seem a bit... I don't know. I mean, they have done before. They have flown out players onto tours before. So it's not a definite no. But you'd think it would probably make more sense for him to get himself ready and be there for when they all arrive back on Sunday. They would. But look, that's been a bit presumptuous. That's going to get slightly ahead of myself. Like I say, from what I understand, Spurs are still hopeful that could be a deal that gets done. Middlesbrough are hopeful it's a deal that gets done. Spence wants it to get done, wants to come to Tottenham, from what we understand. So when you've got all three parties kind of expecting or hopeful that it's going to happen, unless there's a major disaster and they really just cannot come to any agreement and another club comes in, you'd think it's a deal that will happen. But like I say, unlikely to happen before they fly off to Korea, because that is literally within 48 hours or so. But, fingers crossed. Not with my manky plaster thumb, because you don't cross your thumb. But fingers crossed. There's still a hope that will happen from all sides. So, keep an eye on Djed Spence. I found it really interesting as well. I don't know if you saw it. Anyone that uses Instagram, Ryan Sessegnon, Mr. Cryptic, left a comment. Djed Spence put a compilation video up of his last season, obviously on loan at Nottingham Forest. Had a very good season, helped them to promotion. It was like a compilation, always good moments. About 2.5 minutes. It was a good video, actually. Showed what kind of some of his assets in terms of his skill set in terms of defending and also getting forward. And Ryan Sessegnon commented underneath 3 flame emojis, and then you know what to do now. So obviously they're both England under-21 teammates. So it's one of those things. The likelihood is he probably does mean you know what to do now. Come to Tottenham. It could potentially mean you know what to do now, as in just do what you did last season and build on it. You'd think though, with the context and the timing and everything involved, it's probably more Tottenham based, but I wouldn't dare possibly say that is the case. So Lenglet through the door before they fly off to Korea. Spence, Spurs still hopeful that will be a deal that gets done. It's all about valuation now, isn't it? Let's be honest. Middlesbrough, we've seen the figures bandied about, 20 million or more, which again, I think is very interesting when Chris Wilder was talking about that being too much for a Championship striker just a couple of weeks back, maybe a fortnight ago. And I definitely, I think he's going to be a really good player. I really like the look at Djed Spence, and I think at 21 he can only get better as well, as long as, he really commits to whoever his club is going to be next. And if it's Conte and Tottenham, then really just soaks up everything that can be on offer at Tottenham. And under Conte's tutelage, I think he could be a brilliant player. However, the only thing I would say is that's a lot of money for a guy who's, let's be honest, has had one brilliant, really good season, and it's come in the Championship. So I can understand it from the Tottenham point of view of being like, whoa, yeah, we want him, but that's a lot of money. I get that. I do get that. But hopefully, looks like all parties want to make this happen, and hopefully it will. So that's your potential 2 coming in. Certainly one, like I say, in Lenglet will be done before the end of Saturday. And we are going to have one out the door as well in Steven Bergwijn. Maybe by the time that this video eventually uploads, because for some reason they're taking a couple of hours to upload onto YouTube, which is always dangerous in the transfer window when anything can change within an hour. I think there was an expectation that Bergwijn was going to be completed today, but there's some talk that possibly might be tomorrow morning. So it could go either way. It could suddenly be announced tonight, or it could potentially be tomorrow. I think Spurs were maybe expecting it to be done today, but certainly some of the noises from the Netherlands side of things sounds like it might be tomorrow. So, hey, you might be watching this and it's already done. I'm going to be sad to see Stevie B, as I affectionately call him, go. I like him. I do. I've never kind of hid that in any way whatsoever. I think he's a very good player who just hasn't had the breaks. Look, there's part of it. Of course, he's had some big moments in games where he hasn't taken chances. I think there are, we all know the Liverpool game and stuff. There's been some big moments where, yes, he hasn't performed, but there's also been some big moments where he has. We'll always have the King Power Stadium. That night was just incredible. It is honestly, I always call it like my mini Ajax, my mini night in Amsterdam. It had the Premier League version of that night in Amsterdam. It was his Lucas Moura moment, and it was incredible. He has had his injuries at annoying times, little moments where he felt like he was going to get a run of games. He'd some ankle problems he had. I do feel that sometimes managers haven't given him the biggest of opportunities. Most recently, I think Conte would maybe admit that. If it'd be interesting in Korea if we get a moment to sit down off the record whether he would actually admit that, because there were times this season when Bergwijn had been scoring goals for Tottenham, he'd been scoring goals for the Netherlands, took him to the World Cup, and Lucas was still getting picked when maybe Lucas wasn't in his best bit of form. So yeah, there's definitely been times when he maybe hasn't had the rub of the green with the managers as well. Look, his stats, it's a difficult one. When you look at it overall, 83 matches for Spurs, 8 goals, 10 assists. It doesn't sound so great for attacker there, but I think when you look at those 83 matches, it's probably a hell of a lot of those are just a few minutes from the bench at the end of games. I remember looking at some point last season, I think it was. I think in terms of starts, it was so much better. Obviously, he did very well, I remember, against West Ham in the Carabao Cup. Yes, when he, sorry, I can hear Indy barking in the background. He was trying to remind me it was Carabao Cup, clearly. It's putting me off as well at the time. So yeah, I like Stevie B. But look, I said way back, Spurs were looking to get back the 27 million that they paid for him for PSV. Ajax were obviously coming in a lot beneath that. But, you know, they've eventually got, I'm trying to work it out, I'm doing euros into pounds, that's why I've paused, I'm trying to work out in my head, just under £28 million all in, if the extra potentials are added on. So they've essentially would have made a profit. I'm not entirely sure whether the 27 million was all in, including the PSV deal back in, was it January 2020? But either way, they haven't lost money, which some might say is the Tottenham way. But yeah, it's a shame. It is a shame. It is a shame. I like Steven Bergwijn. He's an interesting one behind the scenes. We didn't get many interviews with him. He wasn't the loudest, kind of most outgoing chap. And as I've said before, maybe that was one of the things that counted against him, that behind the scenes, he would maybe let himself get a bit frustrated. Whereas you saw someone like a Matt Doherty would just, he wouldn't be playing, he wouldn't be picked, and he would just train harder and harder and harder and essentially make it impossible for Conte to ignore him. Whereas from the impression I got behind the scenes was that Bergwijn maybe just got down, just let his situation maybe annoy him at times. And that's not to say he wasn't training hard or anything like that, but maybe wasn't going above and beyond like other players who had maybe felt they were being ignored did to try and get noticed. So yeah, I think it'll be sad to see him go, and I think he'll do very well there. Of course he will. He'll be back in the league where he'll flourish again. He's got a lot of goals for PSV, a lot of assists as well, and he'll do the same with Ajax. And with no disrespect meant to Ajax whatsoever, because it's unfortunately is a thing about that league. But I do think it will be a stepping stone for him to then move on again to another club at some point in more of a major league. Ajax and Bergwijn will be a brilliant marriage. I think they'll do very well for each other. And obviously Ajax, a Champions League team and everything, it's not like they're a small club in any way. They're a big club. But I think, you see a lot of the Ajax players will want to go on to major leagues eventually. And I think Bergwijn will eventually. Will it be Tottenham again? Probably not, unless there's something opens up there. But no, I like him. I do like him. So yeah, Steven Bergwijn. Like I say, we will always have the King Power Stadium. Obviously, his debut as well. That Man City goal, that was phenomenal. Scored against Man United. He was a big game player. Like I say, apart from that Liverpool miss, I feel like there was another big miss. I can't remember what game it was. I think he scored against Villa as well. The unfortunate one under Ryan Mason, which all went a bit pear-shaped after that. I think it was a Reguilón sliced-home goal. But yeah, he has turned up at various times when he's been needed. So yeah, I don't think... It'd be interesting. I've seen some people just saying, get rid. And it's like, I've never felt that with Steven Bergwijn. I do honestly think he's still 24? Still a young player in relative terms. And I think there's a lot more to come from him. I think he's going to have a terrific World Cup as well. So, yeah, farewell, Stevie B. What else we got? Richarlison. Tottenham's new number 9. We've had that confirmed. He's the only of the new signings to have their number confirmed, I think, so far. Just probably because, like I've said before, with the other ones, I think they may be waiting for some numbers to become free. Whereas with Richarlison, that number 9 was sitting there. Who was the last number 9? Was it Big Vinny Janssen? Oh, it was Carlos Vinicius? This is one of those where you can ply me with 100 comments of everyone saying the answer for me. But yeah, certainly Big Vinny is the one that I don't know why. For some reason, I always associate. I was going to say Sanaldo, Roberto Soldado with number 9, which obviously maybe isn't the best thing for Richarlison, but obviously it's a number he plays with for Brazil, doesn't he? Number 9. Obviously, we found out this week as well that the Flair incident, he will serve a 1-match suspension for that, which of course will come against Southampton on the opening day of the season. Some people, and I understand their annoyance, some Spurs fans, saying, well, that happened ages ago. It was in the aftermath, if I remember correctly, he scored that match-winning massive goal against Chelsea. And it was in the aftermath of that. So why has it taken until he's a Tottenham player to get himself banned? Just Tottenham luck, as it were. And obviously maybe Burnley wondering that exact as well, having gone down. Because Richarlison was big for Tottenham. For Everton towards the end of that. I spoke to Liverpool Echo, one of their Everton reporters, Adam Jones. Adam used to work with me, so he's a very good chap, and he watches Everton week in, week out. Saw a lot of Richarlison in recent years, so I did what I did with Basuma and Richie Mills, our Brighton reporter, and I asked Adam, essentially various questions about Richarlison, ins and outs, insights, strengths and weaknesses. So some little things for you on him. I asked him, first off, what can Spurs fans expect from Richarlison? So he said, firstly, someone who will give absolutely 100% for the club every single time he takes to the pitch. Even in a struggling Everton side, he was the one who would regularly provide the quality that nobody else could, providing a goal or a moment of magic from absolutely nothing. A particularly pertinent example of that came at the end of last season. When Everton needed him most, he promised that he would not allow his side to get relegated, and he stood up to score 6 goals in his last 9 matches of the campaign, including a crucial winner against Chelsea. He leaves Goodison Park with the love of the majority of Evertonians for exactly this fact. He embodied everything that Blues players should be, but so often haven't over recent years. That's pretty cool. I must admit, I didn't realise the goal record is even that good towards the end. To actually state, I'm going to make sure you don't get relegated and then score 6 goals in the last 9 matches. That's pretty cool. And that is, again, big game player. That is someone, that's what Spurs needs. Spurs need players that can stand up and be counted on. And that's exactly what it sounds like Richarlison is. And quite interesting, you might have seen this week, I think I said it in the last video, this was the plan, or maybe I'm right about it, it all kind of merges together sometimes, that he was going to head to, before he started at Spurs, he was going to head back to Everton and say goodbye to everyone. And you would have seen, actually, the photos, he did put the photos up, so yesterday or the day before, of him saying his farewells to the players and Lampard and everything, which I thought was a nice little touch as well, going back and seeing these guys. What else did I ask Adam? I asked him more. What is his weaknesses and what can he improve on? He said, now that he's moved on for such a large fee, you'd probably have to suggest that his consistent output needs to come under the microscope a little bit more. Richarlison hasn't yet scored more than 13 Premier League goals in a single season, and perhaps he's going to need to improve that aspect. However, with better service around him, you could certainly see that being the case in all fairness. Perhaps the other aspect he needs to improve on is his ability to shake off being targeted in matches. As someone, you can see him visibly frustrated by the number of times he is fouled. And that's something we see. We see him get a little bit annoyed. We see him, maybe it comes as a consequence of sorry, I get all messages while I'm doing this. It's quite funny as well. We see him getting annoyed. We see him go down quite easily, and maybe sometimes it's all wrapped up, isn't it, with these players? Sometimes they are players who just like to go down. Sometimes they are players who go down because they feel they're not winning the free kicks they should. So it's a bit of a vicious circle. That's interesting. That's something to keep an eye on. It'd be interesting to see how Spurs fans whether they have much patience for that sort of thing. Do you remember, was it Didier Drogba? Not sorry, Didier Drogba. Didier Zakora. Sorry, I got my Didiers mixed up. Didier Zakora went down in a game for Spurs. Was it against Portsmouth? I'm trying to remember. And it was not very nice. It was the worst dive ever. And I remember Redknapp being very annoyed. And I remember the Spurs fans being very annoyed at it as well. So it's not like Spurs fans, condone that sort of thing. So it'd be interesting to see whether Richarlison maybe starts off doing that and then realises, that they're not going to like that. He's we'll see on that. What else did I ask? I asked him a few questions. Probably want to give you the main ones. This kind of feeds into this one nicely, actually. It was some Tottenham fans have been a bit worried about potential attitude problem, as perceived attitude issues from the Spurs fans, which I admit I haven't really seen myself. I think I've seen him get a bit frustrated when he gets taken off. That's about the most I've seen. But I've seen some people saying that on social media. So I asked Adam that, I said, has there actually been any indication of that at Everton, any attitude problems? And he said, this is very clear. Well, aside from that little frustration when he's not getting his free kicks, absolutely not. That needs to be made very clear. He's never shied away from his task at hand during his time at Everton. He's never disrespected the club or the fans in any way. On and off the pitch, he's been a shining example of someone fans can really look up to as being selfless, hard-working and dedicated to his role. Those are very important qualities these days. And that's honestly, I've been asking around, not just Adam, other people about Richarlison. And that's something I keep hearing about him. There's this real fantastic character. There's a lot of articles out there as well that show, obviously, the charity side of things. He's very vocal on social issues as well, and things going on that he feels needs to change in the world, back in Brazil. This isn't a guy, and he's only 25. This is not an experienced elder statesman. So, yeah, I must admit, when I saw that on social media, I was a bit surprised. I didn't understand where the attitude problem stuff had come from. And this is a very sensible guy. Clearly the kind of character I think will settle in very well at Tottenham and be a good influence as well. Another question I asked him, Conte demands a lot from his players physically, and in terms of fulfilling his set instructions on the pitch, will Richarlison be able to handle both of those? And Adam said, arguably that's one of his strongest aspects. One of the big issues that Evertonians have highlighted in an early pursuit to replace Richarlison is how they will fill the energy that he brings, the gap that's left, and the strong defensive aspects he produces at the top ends of the pitch. He's someone who can sprint for 90 minutes if he needs to, but also someone disciplined enough to excel in a number of roles. Last season he was used on the flank, leading the line by himself, or as a second striker alongside Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and was comfortable in all of them. Wherever a manager wants to play him, Richarlison will no doubt stand up to the task. He must be a dream in training in that sense. So there you go. Yeah, I keep hearing that. His fitness is really, really up there. And that's really important to hear as well. I think defending from the front, because that is the Conte way. So, honestly, he's ticking every box. I said this before. Talent-wise, I always felt Richarlison maybe had a higher ceiling, but in terms of ticking the boxes, Richarlison does everything for Tottenham in this Conte side. So, yeah, it's good signing. Good signing. Adam and Guesty, Guesty who I do the podcast with, Golden Guest Talk Tottenham, both of them very upset that Richarlison's going. And I think 90 to 95% of Everton fans are going to be the same. Obviously, we know football. We know when there's someone's going, some fans will decide that, get rid of the worst ever, everything, and they start to maybe revise their own feelings on that person. But I'd say you talk to the majority of Everton fans and they will tell you what a good player he is and probably don't begrudge him the move after the mess of the season they had. And like Adam said there, one of the players that stepped up and was counted for, really. And that's all you can ask for. So that's that. What else I want to say? I was going to do a little bit of a Q&A as well, but there's some other little housekeeping bits. Dane Scarlett and Alfie Devine. I initially was told that they were going on the pre-season tour to Korea. Now I'm told there is a possibility, just a possibility, they might not go, purely to give them a bit of rest, because obviously they've been away, if you haven't seen, playing the European Under-19 Championships, which they won with England. Brilliant kind of achievement for them. And they will be... It'd be interesting to see whether it's offered to them or whether it's strongly suggested they now take a week or so to just rest up afterwards. It's a shame in a way, because I would like to see them in Korea. And they may well say, no, we really want to play it, maybe, or they may be told, no, rest up your bodies. But yeah, so it'd be interesting to see what happens there, because it does give chances to others, like Troy Parrott obviously could head out there on tour. Keona Tete, he's been training with the first team this week. Maybe he gets a chance to go as well. Be interested to know what Conte makes of him. I think I saw Jamie Donnelly doing a bit of training as well. If you're not aware of Jamie Donnelly, very talented young striker in the under-18s who will be moving up this season, you'd think, to play a lot more under-23s football. Sorry, it's under-21s now. It's no longer under-23s. So, yeah, it'll be... interesting to see who goes in that tour squad. Obviously, you'd think Pape Matar will be out there. Brian Hill probably out there as well. There will be some left behind. Harvey White, you'd think wouldn't be. Harvey White, you'd think will be out there. But in terms of, you'd imagine Conte will be quite ruthless in terms of if you're not in his plans and there's no real need for you to be out there, stay back and sort yourself out and move. It's happened in the past. I remember the last one, Singapore, Shanghai, there were a number of players, maybe 3 or 4, maybe more players that were left. I think was it Danny Rose, Nkudu, Vincent Janssen? They were all told, find yourself a move, and they weren't. Because as I mentioned, it's a fair bit of expense for the club as well to fly out players who aren't even going to be part of the squad anyway. And you are probably better off, if the decision has been made that players are going, giving that spot to a young player who will benefit from the experience. And we've seen in previous years, Skippy had a great pre-season. I think it was in America. Tanganga and Parrott had good ones in 2019 in Asia. Harry Winks' breakthrough really came in the Melbourne tour in 2016, was it? And there's been others, plenty of players that have had their tour experience, showed that they can be capable in that environment, and then have at least made their debuts, if no more. I always think it's a better thing in my mind, to take a young player than a first team player who's just not going to have any chance of really appearing. Right. Let's pop onto some. The reason I've got messages, and you might occasionally see me go like that, is because I've been putting out some feelers out there into the football world about other little things. Never get the information while I'm doing the video. I will relay it, of course, and if I don't, I won't. So Q&A. Let's see. I've gone back to the last video to have a little look through some of the comments underneath. Let's have a look here. What have we got? We have got some questions. I saw some quite good ones. Bits of football, bits of not. Right, let's start with this one. Okay. This is quite topical as I'm about to head off, hopefully. COVID allowing. They do a lot of testing in South Korea before and when I arrive. So hopefully it'll be good. Lee Baker asks, question for next Q&A from the other side of the pond here in New York City. When the club book an overseas pre-season tour, how much access do you get? Do you actually travel with the squad, or do you make your own way there by whatever means possible? Always been curious about how that works for the journos that go. I don't travel with the squad. I've been actually offered the possibility of doing that in the past, but no. So don't travel with them. No, I will be heading off by my lonesome. There will be other journos out there. I think there's 4 others will be out there. All good guys that I know very well, so that's all helpful. In terms of access, a lot. That's why tours are so good in terms of journos. We'll get probably, I'd say, to interview the majority of the squad by the time we come home. What I would say about this one is, from what I understand, there are so many events taking place. So what happens is the players head off and they do their bits in the community. They'll go and to see people and talk to people, go to events, maybe do some training with youngsters, things like that. And what I understand, the Korean one is going to be mad. There's going to be loads of events going on, sometimes at the same time. So I think as a group of journos, we're going to have to split up, and which is a shame in a way, because it means there's some players that I won't be able to talk to firsthand, but obviously I will get the quotes from that interview, and I will obviously share what I do with the other journalists. We kind of work as a team to make sure we cover everything. But yeah, it'll be a shame. There'll be some players that I don't get the chance to interview, which isn't normally... Well, no, that's not true. It does obviously happen as well on other ones as well, sometimes after matches. But there's going to be so many interview opportunities, because we're going to have all of those events, have training sessions where we normally will grab a player or two after that, got the matches, we'll have press conferences, we'll have a few press conferences with Conte, and I'd imagine normally we get to sit down and have a bit of a chat with him, which was very cool in... Where was that one? In America. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it might have been Orlando. No, I don't think it was. One of the American cities. We sat down with Poch for about an hour in all. So I'm trying to think of the way it worked. It was half an hour with our dictaphones turned on, and then half an hour we'd say dictaphones, it's phones obviously. It used to be dictaphones back in the day, although some still use them. And then we had half an hour with the dictaphones turned off. and just chatted about stuff, and it's obvious it's all off the record, that second bit, but it's just more relaxed, and that's when you get to see these people more in the natural environment rather than being guarded about what they say and stuff like that. And it's a really interesting side of journalism, and you get those little moments like in Shanghai, we were sitting in the team hotel just having a beer with the press officers, and sorry, you can maybe hear India in the background going mad because I think someone's coming to the door. We sit down having a beer with the press officers, and Poch and his coaching team came in, and Poch just sat down and chatted with us for a while, and that's what I love about the tour. It's more relaxed. It's not got the pressure of the time constraints of Premier League matches and stuff like that. You are very much... It's definitely not a holiday. It is... I must stress that. My wife sometimes calls it a holiday. It's really not, because you are constantly working, and the time difference makes a mess of things as well. So when you're just about to go to sleep, or maybe even when you are asleep, you'll get your desk from the other side in the UK going, oh, we need this, we need that. And it's like, oh, lads, it's like 2 or 3 in the morning here. But definitely there is a feeling of you're on the other side of the world. You're a little bit more detached from everything else. And yeah, there's a nice vibe. And, especially when it's boiling, we're all wearing pretty much shorts and T-shirts for a lot of the time because it's so hot. I always remember my first one, my first city was Orlando back in 2017. And the other reporters played a little bit of a trick on me. They were like, oh, we dress really smart. Yeah, we do. So the first day I rocked up to training session Spurs had, and I was wearing trousers, chinos, but still trousers, and I had a shirt, which I think I'd rolled the sleeves up on. And it was in Orlando. It was in Disney's kind of ESPN World of Sport. It was on one of the pitches there. It was about 35 degrees. I was melting. Every part of my body and interiors, my brain was melting. And I looked at all the other journos who'd rocked up in their T-shirt and shorts. And I was like, yeah, that's great. Funny lads, very funny. And it was a whole day thing. So I actually had to go into a Disney shop and buy some shorts just because my legs were roasting that much. It's they are quite cool tours. Like I say, I'm just hopeful I get there, because there's COVID test before departure, COVID test on arrival, and obviously with rising rates, it's quite scary at the moment in terms of that and having the tour messed up. And I am flying from Heathrow as well with a connecting flight with all the mess that's going on at the moment. So I'm definitely not going to 100% say I will be there on the tour, because anything can happen in the next 48 hours or so. But hopefully you will see me out on the tour, and I'll do a video or two out there as well, and maybe a little travel one as well if I can try and fit it in around everything else. What else we got here? Hopefully that answered your question, Lee. Max Gamer 15 asks, what is the furthest away game you've ever had to travel to? Probably the Singapore Shanghai ones. The tour over there. That would probably be obviously Champions League, just Europe. We're very fortunate with the tours. We've got to go to some great places. Nashville was brilliant. Nashville was one of the biggest surprises for me. I expected it to be quite cool, but it was even cooler than I imagined. Brilliant city if you ever get the chance to go there. Probably Singapore and Shanghai. Oliver Saffick Cole asks, at what point does the club sit down with Conte to attempt to agree a new deal? It seems we're really building something, but it's hard to ignore that already he has only 1 year left. And waiting to ignite any renewal talks with him until next summer makes me nervous. Also, I apologise for the manager-related question, as I know you're only just recovering from last summer. I'd imagine that's something they look at. Of course it has to be. What I would say, it's not just 1 year left. There is an option. I think both sides have to agree to it, but I think there is an option to extend it. He is very well paid. This is the thing. It's the other element to it as well. It's not like there's a desperate renewal needed in terms of a salary thing. But yeah, I'd be surprised if the pieces aren't all put into place, and Conte feels appreciated and what he wants understood. then yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if all parties look at that and maybe look to extend that. It would make sense, and I think from a morale point of view as well, just everyone then knows there's that little bit more security around what they're doing. So yeah, I'd be stunned if that doesn't head somewhere. But maybe Conte's looking at what happens first. Makar69 asks, do you own a Spurs shirt and do you ever wear it if you do? I own older Spurs shirts. Obviously, when I was a kid, I used to get older Spurs shirts because my birthday is in August. So it was always quite nicely timed to ask for a Spurs shirt just as the season was beginning. My birthday is August the 9th, so it's pretty much always roughly when the season starts. It's either the weekend after or, as we've got this season, the weekend before. So I used to always ask for a Spurs shirt. Nowadays, I don't. Might be the journalist side of me. Maybe, it does beat the passion out of you a little bit in terms of being a fan anymore. But what I do, because I play quite a lot of 5-a-side and 4-a-side football, I, on occasions, will buy a training top, which was typical. I bought one, or I asked for one for Christmas, was it? I think where we are. Yeah, it probably was Christmas. I asked for one for Christmas. And then, obviously, a few months later, ended up playing in that game at the stadium where they gave us all the training tops. It was the exact same one. It was like, you could have given me a kit. Yes, there's me moaning about free stuff. So, yeah, that probably answers that one, really. I'm trying to remember the last Spurs shirt I bought. It was definitely pre-Nike era. Trying to think if it was even Under Armour. It would have been a while back. But there's a bag in my garage of loads of my old Spurs shirts. So I do buy them, but like I say, mostly training top now. Michael asks, has the Premier League released a TV schedule for the first 2 months? The other day they did. Not many too mad changes to it. The only thing I did see was that after Champions League game, every match is a Saturday. But then obviously Champions League being Tuesday or Wednesday, it's a little bit different from the old Europa League or Conference League being Thursday nighters. I don't think there was anything amazing in those fixtures. Man City away is Saturday night, which it normally is. I think it was a 5:30 one. Yeah, there was nothing particularly mind-blowing in there. I think the only one that didn't change is Fulham. Fulham at home. Still remains 3 o'clock on a Saturday at the moment. So, yeah. So they're all out now. Spoken about those loads. Spoken about that as well. Christopher Robinson asked, favourite place in America? I love it. I do love America. I've got a lot of affection for America. Very fortunate to have got to a lot of the places. Oh, if you could offer me just to go anywhere in this moment in America, just like Star Trek, like beam me up kind of thing, probably New York. I've been there a couple of times. I just love it. If you watch these a lot, you'll know I'm a massive movie fan. And for me, just when you walk around the streets of New York, you just feel like you're in a movie. There's so many places that obviously are featured in this movie or that TV show, or whatever. And I just love it. I do love it. So it's a place that I'd love to go at Christmas. It looks so good at Christmas. That's probably a Home Alone 2 thing. But New York's probably the one. But honestly, I just love so many places in America. It's so cool. I'd love to go to New Orleans. It's one of potentially looking at in the future. I used to watch this show called Treme on... It was an HBO show, but over here it was on... It'd probably be Sky Atlantic now, but it wasn't when it was actually on. But that made me really want to go and see New Orleans. Love the idea of the music. And that's what's cool about Nashville, is the music element to it as well. In Nashville, honestly, you can wander in some of the bars, all the bars down the main kind of strip they have there. You know when you go into maybe a pub in England and there'll be people in the karaoke and you're like, oh my God, you're literally missing every single note. When you go into Nashville and there's people up on the mic, every one of them could be a recording artist. That's essentially where they go, and it's incredible. It's a brilliant experience. What else we got? There's a jokey one there. Any update on Pape Sarr? You never mentioned him. Thanks, Scott. Good question. Davey and Pam Beveridge. If you had a night out, what 4 players and 1 manager, past and current, would you have to join you? Manager, Past, I think it'd have to be Bilnick, wouldn't it? It would have to be Bilnick. Presumably we're allowed people that obviously aren't alive anymore. Bilnick it would have to be, just to talk to the last manager that won a league at Spurs. Current, Martin Jol. I really like Martin. He's a lovely, lovely guy. I've kind of done lots of stuff with him in the past, and he and his whole family are just lovely. Really, I've had the fortune to speak to a lot of his family, and they're all lovely as well. And Martin is exactly like that. Well, you'd imagine he's exactly like that, off the kind of away from the cameras and all that. He's the loveliest guy, and is very much a family man, and all of his family are great. So, yeah, that's the past and current. 4 players. Who would I go with? When I was a kid, my 2 heroes, I guess, because I was always a striker, were Teddy Sheringham and Gary Lineker. So I would maybe pick them, just purely for that aspect, just to be able to speak to your kind of heroes aspect, I guess, which is weird because I've had loads of opportunities to interview both and I haven't ever taken them, which makes that answer a bit mad. But other ones, of course, Gazza would be amazing. Obviously, he'd have to be well, and all of that. I think David Ginola would be good fun as well. There's a few, if I could pick current ones in players as well, I think Eric Dyer would be really interesting to sit and have a chat with. He's a very intelligent guy. Every interview we've ever done is very intelligent, but I think a real chat away from football and stuff like that would be cool. Always like Jan Vertonghen as well. You've probably heard me say in the past, I've got a little bit of a soft spot for Big Jan, the first player I ever kind of interviewed when I took on this job. So he was very kind enough to stop for me when I was standing all on my own, thinking I'd missed all the players. He's another one, very honest. Ericsson as well, very honest as well. And of course, Sonny. Sonny would be brilliant I don't know if it'd be a night out. I'm thinking maybe more a dinner table chat. I think, probably the best one, or sitting in a pub and having a chat in a beer garden in the sunshine. Any updates on Reguilon's future? Asked Philippe Sergio. Nothing at this moment in time. He came back early, to be fair to him. Came back a week early than we kind of expected him to. There was an element, he obviously had the injury towards the end of the last season, so may have been wanting to play catch-up, but just seems such a busy position, that one now, with Perisic and Sessegnon there. Like I said before, I think Emerson and Reguilon they'll listen to offers for, so we'll have to see with that one. Motor City Spur Dillingham asks, what would be your number 1 world vacation destination, all expenses paid? Tough one. Like I said, anywhere in America. I'd love to go to Japan as well, and Australia. Japan and Australia I've never been to. I'd love to go there. So I'm hoping maybe the tour might be somewhere like that, although I just wonder whether it'll end up going back to America or not, which would also be cool. I always look at those cool holidays people have, like, it's the players. They're in places like Bahamas and places like that. I'd probably like to do that for a few days. I must admit, I'm quite a restless holiday maker. I'm not someone that can sit around the pool or sit on the beach. I'm just not. I love the idea of that. And that for a couple of hours, maybe at the most, I can sit there and be like, yeah, I wouldn't even say that. Maybe half an hour I can sit there. Even then I get bored. I'm not someone that just sits in the sun. I have to go exploring. I love city breaks as well and seeing places like around the world in that respect. So yeah, maybe a holiday where I could spend a couple of days at a very cool turquoise blue sea location. When the ones where they have the hotel room that seems to be on stilts, like a cabin on the water. That looks very cool. But then I'd have to immediately be somewhere else exploring and properly getting in and amongst it all. Right, what else we got? Leslie Secura. Is that another Leslie? Leslie Secura asks, are you a Spurs fan, though? I said this many times. I grew up a Spurs fan. My dad, I followed in the family footsteps of Tottenham Hotspur. My dad took me to matches when I was very young. Like many, no doubt, I had no choice. I was born into this. So yes, obviously if I go back and told myself as a kid, one day that you'll report on Tottenham Hotspur and you'll get to go to all these cool places, I probably would have first said, "Get away from me, you creepy old man." But then after that, once I realised it was me from the future, I might have thought, that's actually pretty cool. But the downside, of course, is, of course, it knocks a bit of the fan out of you when you see what happens behind the curtain. Football can be a bit of a grubby, grimy place in some of the things that go on. And there's some, way people are treated are not particularly nice. So you do see your club in a different way. And this isn't just Tottenham, this is all clubs. But, that's the trade, isn't it? You're going to lose a bit of the fan side of you. And certainly you'll never see me in the press box jumping up and down and punching the air. Some journalists do from some clubs. And you literally see the entire press box look at them like, oh my God, it's like the most unprofessional thing ever. I always remember that my first match I covered for Spurs, which was Everton at Goodison Park, the 2016-17 season. And I thought, oh no, what if Spurs score? And am I going to jump up suddenly and look like a complete muppet? And I didn't. I think I surprised myself. I was like, oh, that's good. I think it was Lamella. I think I remember Lamella heading in the ball. And I just went, go. Look, there are times when internally I'm going, that night in Amsterdam with Lucas Moura. It's just internally that's just going mad. But it does knock that fan side out of you a little bit, which maybe helps though in terms of being a little bit more objective and maybe rational when I think about stuff. Because let's be honest, when we think as fans, we can definitely go down some weird paths of the way we look at stuff and how angry we get, or maybe overexcited about stuff as well. Especially this transfer window, where, even, I think I said it last week, about the amount of days it takes before people get, funny about there not being a transfer. I was talking to someone earlier today, and it's like Richarlison got announced on Friday, was it? And we're Thursday. And someone today was saying, everything's really slowed down. And I'm thinking, they've had 4 transfers. The last one was 6 days ago. And we're just about to have another one come in the door. It's just funny. It's funny the way we think as fans as well. What else we got here? Joe asks, is it ever awkward trying to get information out of contacts without outright asking for information, especially if they're not very accommodating or cooperative to you as a journalist? Particularly for people you might not know well or are new contacts altogether. It's a bit of... it depends. It depends. Obviously, sometimes you do occasionally have to just cold call people in a way. That's not to say that I'm working some call centre with the earpiece thing in. But sometimes, yes, you will get a number off maybe, let's say, an agent or another agent or someone connected with a player or someone connected with a club. And it will be the first time you speak to them. And sometimes, obviously people don't want you to tell people that you've given them their number and stuff like that. So you are very much starting from scratch in those purposes, in these incidents. It depends how you go about it. I'd hope that I've built a bit of a reputation for not being someone that will just write any old rubbish because I heard it from someone, and that I try to double source everything I do. So maybe when I talk to people, even if they're slightly not standoffish, but if they're slightly reticent to begin with to talk, then sometimes maybe they go away and they have a little look, or they type my name in and whatever, or ask around. Then sometimes that helps, word of mouth as well. And then you'll find there's not many. You get the odd time people just don't really want to say anything. And sometimes there's a real good reason behind it. Speaking to some people around certain deals this summer, and there's a real feeling like if we let too much information go out there, it actually might scupper the deal. And there are instances like that. Someone asked me this. I think it might have been on Twitter. I don't think it's underneath one of these. But they asked me, is there any times that you've known information but not reported it? And yeah, there is the odd occasion when you are asked. And that's the thing. This is how you don't lose contacts. There will be times they'll say, look, I can tell you this, but it has to stay between us and it can't go any further. And obviously I can't speak about it in this and I can't write it. It's not often, but it does happen. And sometimes that is purely for those reasons, that it could maybe, I don't know, tip off another club to come in. It could... maybe a deal is in a bit of a fragile state, and any kind of push in either direction can affect it. And it's not to say that I believe I can mess up a transfer deal, but kind of indirectly, I guess I could start a chain reaction that does. So yeah, there are occasions like that when you know little bits and pieces, and there'll be times maybe when someone within the club might say, look, this is what's happening, but actually it's of no benefit to anyone if this comes out or something. And there'll be times like that. It's not often. It's very rare. But no, that kind of, it's all part of, I guess, as journalists, we kind of have to negotiate in a way. Sometimes we'll go to someone with a story about something and it ends up becoming a story about something else because of these weird pathways these things take. So, yeah, it's interesting. And what I've found interesting, I think I might have said this before, is that, like I said, I have no idea why I have a certain amount of followers that I do and things like that. You know what I'm like. I never in these videos will tell people to whatever you're meant to do in these videos. Never tell people to follow me or like me or anything or whatever. That's just not what I do. And that's not to say that's a bad thing. It's just not what I do. I'm just literally a bloke here who's having a chat. And if you want to hear it, you want to hear it. If you don't, you don't. It's entirely up to you. But what I found interesting is the fact that as that follower count has grown across social media, that actually the amount of more people that will come to me in the game, which is an interesting new thing. Because when you're starting out, you are scrapping for contacts and people like that and trying to kind of get to everything you can to make that face-to-face contact. Whereas maybe as you get on a little bit, you'll find that the old expression sliding into your DMs and stuff, sometimes you will get that on various things. It's quite interesting because maybe you have that little bit of a reputation. So yeah, it's just interesting the way it works. What else we got? More questions. Hitesh asks, might have been asked, but do you think the £150 million will also have to cover the January transfer window? I'd imagine not. I'm pretty sure I was told at the beginning that the bulk of it would be used for transfers this summer. It all has to be used, or it certainly has to be withdrawn by the end of this year for ENIC to get their ownership percentage rise. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, you could argue that technically you could withdraw the money and use it in January, but like I said, from everything I'm hearing, or was told at the time, certainly when it all happened, the idea was the bulk would be used for the summer transfer window, which is good news. So we shall see. I mean, yeah, there's almost 5 down and more to come. That's a similar question kind of to what I've just answered. Someone did that one. That's interesting. There's someone saying about the transfer window slowing down for Tottenham. Adam asked, do you see the season's pre-season tour as a good... That's a joke. I just want to read that out. Adam says, do you see the season's pre-season tour as a good career opportunity for you? Very good. Very good. Career. I like it. That's my kind of dad pun. Richard Pugh asks, I have literally no questions to ask about Tottenham, so I'll ask you, are you doing an NFL Fantasy League this coming season? Can I be in it? And who is your NFL team and why? NFL Fantasy League, yes, I am in one. Might be in a couple this year. I did my first one last year and really enjoyed it. It's an invited thing, so I'm not in charge of who's in it. My NFL team is the New York Giants. Clearly, I like pain at the moment in terms of my teams. Obviously, Giants used to be certainly big players, but in recent years have gone down a bit. But hoping Daboli comes in and sorts things out. Why? I think the whole New York connection. When I was a kid, honestly, I adored New York. It's since I was a kid, and I can't even remember why. It may have been something in a movie. Maybe someone was a Giants fan in a movie and just became my team as a kid. Who else we got? Another person asking about Reguilon. Because it's almost exactly the same word-for-word question. Lots of people asking me my holiday destinations. I'm guessing it might be because of this thing about how transfers seem to happen when I'm off. But it's not always the case. It does happen, but it's not always the case. Aaron Simmons asked, if you had to report on any other team in the Premier League, who would you choose? I don't think I could. Don't think I could. I think it would maybe have to be like a promoted team that would come up. But I don't think I could anyone else, not a main team. I think, I don't think I could. And that's weird because that is maybe the element where the fan thing does come into it. I love, because like Guesty, for instance, I did a podcast with, he has always said he wouldn't really want to report on Everton, who is his team, because he wants to enjoy them as a fan. But I love the fact that I'm kind of involved with my club as a kid that I always loved and supported. So I don't think I get the same enjoyment. And it's not like it's the first club I've covered. My background is non-league football and League Two football. Used to cover lots of non-league clubs, Stevenage as well in the Football League. So I can, I've always kind of covered them. I'd like to think I also covered them all in the same way with the time I had and the jobs I had. But yeah, I don't think I could another Premier League. Good question, no? Stan Maisie, if you could compare yourself to your own football playing style to one current or former Spurs player, who would it be? It's a bit like I say, Teddy was my hero growing up. It's a little bit like Teddy, nowhere near the same level. I'm only talking on Sunday League level, but yeah, that kind of number 10 that comes a little bit deeper and tries to spray the ball around a bit as well as getting into the box. That's probably more my style. What else we got? Lots of people asking about sources and asking what roles they have. Many different roles in clubs, around players, various stuff. Obviously, if I said who they were, there would not be sources any longer. That's a key part of it as well, and I get the kind of the need for information for people as well. But obviously, hopefully, that's why we as journalists have sources, because those sources know that we're never going to say who they are. Because if you do, you're ruining everything. You're ruining the trust, you're ruining the relationship, and get them stuffed as well, really. Who else we got? Stephen Thomas, do you think Alfie Devine will be the attacking or fifth midfielder at Tottenham? I think Alfie will probably get a loan. I think it was Leyton Orient came for him last summer, and Spurs said no, because the idea then was to try and to get him to that 3 years of continuous playing in the club to get him onto the B list for European games, because that was also a problem for him. Couldn't be registered on the European list for the Conference League last year because of the numbers, and he wasn't on that B list. But it looks like they'll probably abandon that plan just purely because he's at the stage now where he needs to get first team football. So I'd imagine you'd think League 2, League 1 level for a youngster that age, just to get him kind of seeing into it a bit more gradually. Whereas a Championship maybe would be chucking him in the deep end a little bit too soon. But we'll see what happens with him. Bob Dunham asks, has there been any consideration given to trying Lucas at wing-back? It's been spoken about. Conte, if you'll notice, pretty much every time we tried to mention it last season, he didn't really talk about him as that. Spoke about Bergwijn and Kulusevski, but never really Lucas. I always remember the Arsenal game when Lucas essentially played as a wing-back in front of... Was it Reguilon? I can't remember who it was, but he was essentially doubled up as a second left-back. So he can do it, but yeah, it hasn't really ever been mentioned. Has there been any news on Bremer from Torino? Asked Pro Skills. Not recently. I saw there was some piece going around today, some of the foreign media saying that he only wants to go to Inter. So I must admit I haven't heard anything more recently on him. Andrew asked, question for the next Q&A. How do you think you'd get on in a Spurs medical in pre-season? I'd be knackered. Medical, I reckon, got a bit dodgy knees. Used to do quite a bit of running. I did the London Marathon years back, way back, 2013. Absolutely mullered my left knee towards the end of the day. It was like running on nails in my knee for it's about mile 17 it happened, so I had a fair way left. So yeah, I don't know if my knee would entirely pass a medical. And it always lets me know that I've played 5-side twice a week, and it's always sore just off in the day or two after. Pre-season, I'd probably say no, especially a Conte pre-season. I'm not in the shape. I'm now 42, so I'm not in the shape I once was. So no, I pretty much guarantee I probably wouldn't even last the first day of pre-season. And it's one of those where I think a lot of ultra fit people probably think they could, but it's still nothing compared to Premier League fitness. Hanks Music or T Hanks Music. Do you think you've ever influenced Tottenham making a transfer for better or worse? No, no. I wield no power whatsoever. I don't think I ever have. No, definitely not. I don't even know why I paused there as if I was thinking, oh yeah, remember that one in the summer of 2020? No, definitely not. Although I think some Mourinho fans blame me for him getting sacked, which definitely is not true. Definitely not true. He used to get a lot of flack from Mourinho fans. It was a strange one, that, because I actually really liked Jose. And I probably, among the journalists, maybe, I don't know, but I feel that personally I probably tried to give him as much benefit of the doubt, because I'm very much one who is, don't believe anything that's said in the past. It's all very much on now. But yeah, some of the Mourinho fans kind of don't like me. Let's put it mildly. They kind of think I had something to do with the end, which I really don't. If you think anyone bases anything. And then I also did this thing. I tweeted out after one game that it was the next game. And maybe that's why, me not taking into account the timing of it, but we were all working away in the press box, and Tongi and Dembele walked past, and he got waved up. He was all happy. And it wasn't too long after I and Dave Heitner from The Guardian had interviewed him. So I don't know whether he saw me and waved, or whether it was just everyone. It probably just in general he was waving at the press box. So I just tweeted, oh, Tongi looks happy, waving up at the press box. I think a lot of the Mourinho fans took that in a completely different way. They took that as if I was saying, Tongi's happy, Jose's gone. What a happy day for everyone who's waving. And that was really not what I was saying at all. I was just literally stating exactly what had happened. It's like, there's Tongi, he's happy, he's waving. It was very matter-of-fact report. Not, you can barely call it reporting. It was, just an interesting little aside maybe for people who had already left the ground and couldn't see stuff like that. And yeah, that maybe solidified the dislike among some, maybe thinking that I was making some comment about Mourinho, which I'm not. I'm really intrigued to see, because currently planning to do the Roma pre-season friendly, so be interesting to kind of catch up with him and see how he is to the Spurs journos. Obviously, we haven't spoken to him since, so that'd be interesting. Right, let's do one more before I head off. Aaron in Edmonton asks, if you could pick any three characters for any film or different films to play for Spurs, who would they be and what position would they play? As a kid, my favourite three characters were always Indiana Jones, Clark Kent and Han Solo. Obviously a heavy Harrison Ford influence there, so those three, I'd say. This is such a ridiculous question, but I love it. Superman would just score 1 billion goals. It kind of would ruin the game. Let's have him as a three-pronged attack. That's a funny one. I like that. Longcheck Juan asks, Conte was referred to as repeatedly as a modern club with great facilities. Does he know that we're actually a grand old club with rich history, or does he think we're a new modern club like RB Leipzig? Now, he'll be well aware of the long history of Tottenham. You can't escape it. In the training ground, there's loads of nods to it, and also at the stadium, every corridor you walk around, where the player area is, and also where he'll go through to his press conferences. There's all, there's the double winning team. There's the Arthur Rowe push and run team. There's everything. Don't worry. Conte is aware. When he talks about modern club, he's talking more about the upgrades that have been made. The £30 million or so training ground, which is one of the best in the world, Hotspur Way. The stadium, which is one of the best in the world. That is very much what he's talking about. He's not talking about a club that was just born recently. But I understand, he could maybe get that impression from it. I should have just asked, because that's interesting. Someone's asked this. I just want to clarify. Earlier when I said about sometimes people might say don't release a bit of information or something because it would be quite harmful. That's not really about a transfer. especially if that's come from someone within the club. It's not really, transfers isn't like that. It's more, I don't know, maybe something about an injury or someone that's got a personal situation going on which is of no relevance to the world, things like that. Not really so much with a transfer. Maybe sometimes an agent or let's say a family member or a member of their player's media team or whatever, anything like that, anyone connected with a player. Maybe sometimes they ask if you can just hold back on something until it's a little bit more concrete, which is fine because I don't want to look wrong anyway. So, it's Ian, E-O-I-N, if I'm murdering the pronunciation. He's asked a question that's similar to that about releasing information, stuff like that. So, yeah, there you go. Right, I'm going to head off because I've been speaking for a long time. I didn't even realise I'd crept up to that time. It's a bit of a long one, so apologies for that. So, quick summary of the stuff at the beginning in case you've kind of skip through it. I do know someone that watches these in like 1.5 speed or something for their own reasons, which I must sound a bit like Alvin and Chipmunks. Long lay, hopefully medical in the next 24 hours, tied up before the flight to Korea on Saturday. Bergwijn likely, if it's not done this evening, will be done tomorrow morning. And Djed Spence, Spurs still hopeful it'll happen. Borough hopeful it'll happen. Player would like to play for Tottenham. Fingers crossed everyone gets their heads together and makes it happen. I think it's a difficult deal, and that's why it won't be done before Korea. But you'd hope before we get too deep into pre-season so he can get a bit of the Conte pre-season. So there you go. Right, I'm going to head off. Wary I've taken up far too much of your time. Obviously, I head off to Korea on Saturday as well, so I might probably not enough time to do one before, but hopefully we'll do one from Korea at some point once the jet lag has left my body. And lots of cool stuff happening in Korea, so I will keep you abreast of everything that's happening over there, and hopefully it'll be a great experience if I can get over there. Still a lot of hurdles until I can do that, but fingers crossed. Again, lots of fingers crossing today. And I really recommend Thor: Love and Thunder. It's brilliant. So there you go. Thor is not paying me to say that, by the way. So there you go. Right, going to head off. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.